Okay, welcome everyone for CELPIP Speaking Pro Target 9. This is the second session today. So those who attended the first one, hopefully you still have the energy to get through another session today. That's great. Today we're going to look at now tasks 5 to 8. Okay, so we already looked at tasks 1 to 4, and now we're going to move on to the remainder of the test. They do get a little more difficult for most people, though some people do like task 8 and some do like task 5 as well. But I do think they generally get a little bit more demanding and challenging as you move forward in the test, especially the second part. So let's get right into that. Again, I need to remind anyone who's new to the session that the microphones are muted, so we're not able to speak directly with each other, which would be good, but unfortunately, with the number of attendees, it becomes very, very challenging to do that. So we do have to mute the microphones, but we do communicate through the questions box as best we can. And I try to keep up with all of your comments. I do review them after the session as well. So if I don't mention something, do understand it's just because of the amount of attendees, but we do appreciate your engagement through the questions box. So those who are maybe new to the session, the way you find the questions box is on your GoToWebinar control panel. And sometimes that will minimize on you and you will need to click on an orange arrow to open it back up. The questions box is down below, and anything you type in there we can see. Today we're lucky to have Cameron with us as well. Cameron here works at Paragon as well, and she's here to answer any questions that you might have. She'll be answering you via text. Okay. Sometimes I will address your question as well when I think it might be a benefit to everyone else as well. I try to do that, and if there's time, I'll deal with more questions as well. But we encourage you to use the questions box to ask questions, to respond to any comments that, or respond to any questions that I have, make a comment, anything like that. Feel free to use it. No one else can see what you type in the questions box. Only Cameron and I can see that. So don't worry about anyone else seeing what you're typing. Okay. All right. And if you do have any technical issues, we always recommend you log out and log back in to try to correct it. And if that doesn't work, usually it does. If it doesn't, you want to try Chrome as your browser if you're not using that already, because it seems to work best with GoToWebinar, okay? We also encourage people to have a paper and a pen handy for today, because we do, as you may know, in the first session, we actually want to do practice. And so in doing so, you'll benefit from being able to take notes. And note-taking strategies are very important to develop and to continue working on, because the preparation time really doesn't feel like a lot for anybody, really. But we can maximize that time with really effective note-taking as well. So it's good practice. We also recommend that you have a recording device handy. The reason for this is because you're going to speak your responses out loud. Hopefully, you're able to do that. And if you can record it, it's even better, because then you can listen to it again later as many times as you like. Although it's not fun to listen to our own voice sometimes, it's really, really helpful and will help you develop. I recommend that you transcribe it, write out what you're saying, and then look at it and analyze it. And we're going to be looking at a number of sample responses today and looking at how we might be able to analyze them to improve as well. So after the session as well, you'll get an email that has links in it. One of the links is to a survey that we really appreciate if you complete. It's a very short survey, about 3 minutes or so, and it just provides us with some excellent feedback to help us develop as well. So feel free to do the survey. We do appreciate that a lot. And also, you'll get a link to some study materials. And you want to definitely look into that, because these are additional sample responses They're different than the ones that we're going to be using today, and you can practice with those. So there's some materials there, additional strategies, but also the sample analysis, which is really helpful. And Anuj has asked, does each webinar have different sample responses? If you're going to the same webinar, like for next month, we have another Target 9, it'll be the same presentation as you see today. But we have other webinars like Target 5 that uses different samples, different, okay, so there are different samples used in different webinars, but the same webinar is generally used from month to month. So I hope that it addresses your question as well. All right, so this is me. My name is John Haggerty. I'm a content developer, online instructor here at Paragon Testing Enterprises. Okay, so I do have about 20 years of experience in ESL and EFL environments. I spent about 10 years in South Korea, and a lot of that time was on test preparation. So students there, you know, they definitely prepare for a lot of tests, including TOEFL and others. So I do understand some of the challenges that you are facing in preparing for a test like this. I'll do my best based on my education and experience to help you with the speaking components of the CELPIP today. Okay. Now, just a quick overview here. We're going to talk first about, the overview of the test. We won't spend too much time on this. We talked a little more about this in the first session, but I'll quickly review some of these things. And we'll get right into tasks 5 to 8. And this involves different functions in communication. Comparing and persuading is important to be able to do. And dealing with a difficult situation, expressing opinions, and describing an unusual situation. There's a spelling mistake there I'll need to correct. Describing an unusual, not and. Okay, and I like that task 8. It's an interesting one. It can be challenging for people, but I think it's a good way to end your speaking test. We'll end up with a discussion of CELPIP study materials that you'll definitely want to look into. And I'll just briefly describe how you can access them and some of the materials that we have available, okay? Now, here are the overall, all the questions on the speaking test, okay? You do get 8 questions in total. And we've already discussed lesson 1 in the previous session, task 1 to 4. So hopefully you were able to do that, able to attend. If not, Mira is letting us know that they missed the intro. Will they be able to get access to the first presentation? Unfortunately, that's difficult. What I recommend trying is trying to register for it. Within an hour or two, you might be able to view a recording. A recording does become available. Unfortunately, we don't post that one on YouTube, but it is available through GoToWebinar. So if you use the registration link again, you might be able to view that one in about an hour or 2 or 3 hours. The recording becomes available. I apologize if you're not able to access it. We are working on that to make sure they're at least available on YouTube for you in the future, okay? So let's move forward. I just wanted to mention there is a practice task. You definitely want to take advantage of that. It's not scored, but it's intended to give you some practice and to make sure your microphone's working. Some of the responses require or are a little more challenging. Task 5 is the first one we're going to look at here today in this session, and it's a 2-parter. So there's 2 parts, and because of it, it's a little complicated. You get a little more preparation time for this, and that's because of the amount of information that you'll need to understand in order to answer. Same with task 6. It's dealing with a difficult situation, and that has more context to it, and you need some time to process the context involved and to make a decision before you speak. So you get a little more preparation time for that. It's always going to feel like not enough preparation time, and I definitely agree with that. But it's the way the test designers have designed it. So Unfortunately, we can't change that. So we have to deal with the preparation time we're given and try to maximize that as much as possible. And we're going to talk about that. Now, in task 1, at the beginning, you do have to speak for 90 seconds. So it's a little more challenging to speak for 90 seconds for some people. But I find task 1's not that hard to be able to speak for 90 seconds. But task 7 can be in expressing opinions to speak for 90 seconds. And in that one, you only get 30 seconds to prepare as well. So task 7 can be quite challenging for some people. And I should also mention that all of the tasks are weighted equally. So you are given an overall score based on all 8 tasks, but they are all weighted equally. That's good because if you do really, really well in the first, part of the test, then you're kind of maximizing your score, and that leaves some room to maybe not do so well on some of the questions, but still get a good overall score. So I hope that helps. Again, as I mentioned, the practice task is very helpful. It does allow you to at least get your mouth moving and your brain working. So you'll get an easy question like this: talk about one of your best friends. You don't have to worry about what you're talking about. No one will listen to it. It's not scored. It's not part of your test, but it gives you an opportunity to practice, to see the preparation time and know your recording time. The real benefit as well is that you're able to see that your microphone's working and that your headphones are loud enough for you. This is really important part of the speaking test, to make sure that the microphone is working well. If you are having a problem during the practice task, make sure you put your hand up in the test center and have this fixed immediately. Nothing worse than, finding out you finished your speaking test, you felt like you did a good job and nothing was recorded. That would be a horrible experience, right? All right, and also the speaking performance standards are very important to get used to. Again, you can take a screenshot of this or maybe view a video later, a recording of this video. Also, this will be available in your study package later as well. So you have many ways to access these performance standards, and I encourage you to use them to analyze your own responses as well, to get a better understanding of what raters are looking for. And these are the actual dimensions that raters consider when they rate your responses. So this is the best way of you trying to think about how to improve as well, get a sense of how you're doing. I can't say that they're equally weighted because there are so many factors involved and the scoring process is quite complex. But I will just mention that they're all important to your response, and the many factors that go into each one mean that not one factor is going to influence your score so much compared to the others. They're all fairly equal. And so if you're not doing well on one factor, it's not going to, ruin your response. So a lot of people want to know exactly, precisely, how is everything calculated. I wouldn't worry about that too much. What I would worry about is trying to make sure you're maximizing as many factors as you can to make sure you get the best possible score that you can, okay? But there are 4 dimensions here: content coherence, vocabulary, listenability, and task fulfillment. And all of them are important, and we're going to be, looking at these as we analyze samples here today. So I won't go into too much detail on them right now, but you can get a sense of those. Also, you probably know all of the CELPIP levels. There's basically 12 levels. Today we're focused on level 9, okay, and that's an important level for a lot of people. It's not easy to get a level 9, but it's certainly not impossible. And it's important to know what you need to do to improve to get to a level 9. Again, there's not one way to do that because there are so many factors involved. There are a lot of different ways to get a level 9. So when we're looking at sample responses, it's not always clear, why is this a level 9? But to a rater, they can really specify based on factors why certain responses achieve level 9, even though maybe they don't have things that we prefer. Maybe it's not as coherent as we would like, or something like this. But to raters, they consider all the factors as well. So also, when you do the CELPIP test, you will now get your score reports in a very quick turnaround time, 4 to 5 business days. This has been improved recently. It used to be 8 business days, but now it's only 4 to 5 business days. I think that's awesome. Also, you will get can-do statements in your score report. These are statements that indicate what you're able to do at that level. And I think that's helpful as well to give you more feedback. You'll also get a performance profile, and this is the level 9 performance profile. And so people who are able to communicate at this level in speaking can communicate complex details, feelings, and attitudes. And they can speak in both familiar and unfamiliar context. Okay, so at lower levels, test takers find it challenging when they have a new context. But for an advanced level, like level 9, you're able to adjust to new context. And that's one of the differences. You know, when you struggle with new questions and new contexts and you're struggling to figure out what to say, you know, that's an indication that, you know, a little more language development is necessary, a little bit more reading, a little bit more listening to get more familiar with how to respond in a variety of situations here. And as well, your grammar, your word choice, and your pronunciation are good enough that no one is really confused about what you're saying, at least not too often. It can happen in a level 9 where it gets a little confusing, but if it's too much, it's really impossible to get a level 9 because it affects a lot of things in terms of content as well, coherence. Okay, let's get right into task 5. So this is comparing and persuading. And I did mention that there are 2 parts to this task, and that's the confusing part. So I want to explain those 2 parts to you as clearly as I can. And then I encourage you to do the practice test, the sample test online, and the practice test to really get familiar with how this works, this task 5. Okay, so there are 2 parts to it. The first part is comparing, and you don't need to speak about that. The second part is persuading, and you do need to speak about it. So let's go through this. Part 1, you would see something like this. This is your screen that you would see, and you'll give in some context here at the top, your question. So you and your friend want to start a business. He has 2 ideas. Using the pictures and information, choose the option that you prefer. Okay? Now, you don't need to speak about this, but it's necessary to think about it deeply and choose one that you think you can speak about better later. So, you know, you look at this information, the consignment store or the food court franchise, and you make a decision about which one you think is better for you to speak about. All right, and it doesn't matter which one you choose, just one that you're comfortable with. If you don't choose, the computer will choose one for you. So you don't really want to do that. You'd rather choose one that you're confident about. It may not be one that you believe in more, but it may be one that you know that you can persuade someone about. All right, that you feel more confident, maybe more ideas. You're given some information below in the bullet points, but use that to kind of think more deeply. What else can I say about this? Why would this one be the best choice? Once you make a choice, you'll notice it's highlighted, okay? And that means that's your choice. The other choice will then disappear in the next part. You don't have to worry about the other choice anymore. You'll be given a new example in part 2. So then we'll just move forward here. These are just things you need to look at, to think about your comparing. And then when you move to part 2, you'll notice your choice appears always on the right side. So here we chose the food court franchise. So that's your choice, and that's the one you're going to have to be persuasive about. But you're going to be given another choice. And usually this choice is not as good. Sometimes it's ridiculous. And sometimes it's just, you know, you can sense that it's not a good idea. So the challenge here is to persuade whoever has that choice that maybe your choice is better. So here you see in the instructions, your friend is suggesting another business idea. Persuade him that the option you chose is more suitable by comparing the two. Okay, so the goal here is to, this is your friend, so you can be a little informal, but you don't want to like ridicule or make fun of his choice. I don't think that would be a good approach. It's not very persuasive to ridicule or make fun of the other choice, to say, oh, that's stupid, what are you, crazy? I wouldn't recommend using that language to persuade. You want to be friendly and persuasive, right? So Guljan, you asked, in this task, do we compare? Yes. You make a comparison, but the goal is to focus on persuading the other person about your choice, right? You can make comparisons along the way. Nothing wrong with that as well. Okay. Let's listen to a sample response. I'm going to play the sample response here while you're looking at the pictures. I think it's helpful to see the information that's there, the delivery service versus the food court franchise. And then maybe I'll play it again with the transcript if it's necessary, okay? But let's listen while looking at the pictures. Okay, so this is a test taker's response. And we won't guess the levels because many of you who come to these webinars probably know I play a level 8 first and then a level 9 later. So just know this is not good enough to get a level 9, and there's probably many reasons for that. But it is a level 8, and let's consider some of the factors that might have resulted in not being a level 9. Okay, and then we'll look at a level 9 later to get a sense of what that might sound like as well. But let's listen to a level 8 here.
Well, food court franchise is much better idea than delivery service. First of all, you already know how to cook since you've been cooking food for 5 years now, right? And we both know that you have back injury and you cannot lift heavy weights, and delivery service includes large items such as furniture or TVs, so it's not a good idea for your back, like for mine too actually. Also, to start a food franchise business we only need $8,000, and for delivery service we need $40,000, and also we have to buy a large truck. We don't have that kind of money, so it will be much more satisfying to just open a food court franchise. It will be more fun to interact.
Okay, so notice the person got cut off a little bit. Also notice they were hesitating a little bit there as well. They were drawing on some of the information in the bullet points, and that's good to do, but you want to kind of develop beyond that as well, right? And so let's look at the transcript here. I'm going to play it one more time, and then you get a real good sense of some of the strengths and weaknesses of this response. They got a level 8, which is not a bad level to get. It's good. It's not exactly easy to get a level 8. So they were doing some really good things here. It just wasn't quite enough to get a level 9. So listen again and think about that, okay?
Well, food court franchise is much better idea than delivery service. First of all, you already know how to cook since you've been cooking food for 5 years now, right? And we both know that you have back injury and you cannot lift heavy weights, and delivery service includes large items such as furniture or TVs, so it's not a good idea for your back, like for mine too actually. Also, to start a food franchise business we only need $8,000, and for delivery service we need $40,000, and also we have to buy a large truck. we don't have that kind of money. So it will be much more satisfying to just open a food court franchise. It will be more fun to interact.
Okay, so if you have any comments in terms of what was a strength of this, or maybe what could have been improved, feel free to do that in the questions box if you have a comment. Remember, only myself or Cameron, I think Cameron's here, or maybe it's somebody else, I'm not sure, but there is another person here as well, and they're able to address some of your questions as well. But only we are able to see what you're typing. Good. Guljan has asked, do we need to compare? And I love the response here. So I think this is Cameron or maybe Nathan, I'm not sure, but great answer. You should make a choice and be as persuasive as you can. You can acknowledge that you can see where the other person is coming from. You can understand their position, and that's a good thing to do because you're being polite. And you can, think about both sides, but the focus is on persuading the other person about your idea. So make sure you do a lot of that in this question. All right, so Guljan said there was too much repetition in here. Leia's mentioned transitions. I agree. Transitions could be improved always, something to work on. Sally also said linking words would be better. Good. Mira has said he spoke for a full length of time. Excellent. I agree. And also Sally said he was quite smooth in his delivery. And I think I agree with that. His delivery was quite good. Jimmy has asked, should we call someone by name? That's up to you. I think it adds a little personalization as well to add a little name. I wouldn't worry about it too much, but it's certainly good to personalize it a little bit and maybe create a name for somebody. It could be someone real in your life as well to make it more real. And maybe that will influence how you speak as well, and it will sound more natural. Good. Shamina said, could say some appreciation words for his friend's choice. Yes, I think that's polite. I think, thank you for that idea. It's a good idea, however, and then start with persuading. Good. Parandeep says, is it possible to get 8 for this type of answer? Yes. This person did get a level 8. This was an actual test taker who achieved a level 8 for this response. Okay, remember they delivered it well. It was smooth. It was good vocabulary. Overall, a pretty good job. But what was missing? Let's figure that out. Why is it not a level 8? So good. Let's look at some of the analysis. He does provide 3 main reasons, which is good. Knowing how to cook, back injuries, and cost. The cost he got from the bullet points. Knowing how to cook, he kind of made up that on his own. I think that's great. And the back injuries was also he made up. And those were all good supporting reasons, I think. He used basic transitions. He could have improved here. We always do this in speaking. And, but, and so is so common. That's important. A little more development of ideas would further improve that dimension a little bit. But I think he did a pretty good job in content coherence. Vocabulary, not bad. Used common words well, back injury, interact, and some phrases like that kind of money. But here, I think vocabulary was one area that, brought down the response a little bit. A greater range of words and phrases would have helped here. Listenability was good. There was clear pronunciation. The rhythm was steady. There were no real extended pauses. A little bit slow in speaking, but nothing dramatic there. It could have maybe got a little bit more content by speaking a little bit more fluently, but overall, really good in listenability. But he did use mostly simple grammar structure, and more complex constructions would have helped there. Okay, and relevance. Again, he understood the task well. He addressed the other person directly, and you want to make sure you do that, and he spoke for the full time. The tone was good. He was friendly, didn't ridicule or make fun of the other person. He was cut off at the end, so wasn't able to complete the idea or have a closing as well, but again, it's hard to be perfect, right? So overall, not a bad response, but just wasn't quite enough for a level 9. And later we're going to listen to a level 9 and get a sense of that. All right, I just want to look at some of the comments here. So thanks everyone for, Win has said the starting seems to be too sudden. Yeah, I think he could have been a little more context provided at the beginning, might have helped, specify a little bit about, I think a good strategy is actually to mention the other person's choice, like, oh, I see you have a good idea here to get a food delivery truck. I think that could work, but I have a better idea, and then start with that, something like that. So I agree. That's a good comment, Win. Anna has said, when he says large items such as furniture or TVs, he is just repeating what's written, right? And raters really recognize this, maybe more than I do, or we do. Raters really know what is in the question prompt. They know what all the information that's there, and they hear so many responses that when things are repeated too much, they sense that, right? Suhail said some ideas are missing, right? A little more development of those ideas would have helped. And Nadeem, hopefully I've given you an idea of how you might start this question. There is no best way to start, but certainly making sure the listener is aware, obviously you're talking to the other person with the idea. So I wouldn't just start with saying, I think going to or doing this food franchise business is the best, and here are the reasons why. I'd probably want to make it more natural, like I'm speaking to another person. Okay. And Key has said, good to use transition words like first of all also. Yes, work on your transitions. The more you can improve your transitions, it has a double effect in terms of vocabulary, but also in terms of coherence. It's easier for the listener to follow when you have really effective transitions, right? Good. And let's see, any other comments? Sally has said the weakness is that his range of vocabulary is limited and he uses language from the text. Well done. So I agree with that. And raters really, really notice that. So would you like to have some practice? I think so. You're going to get a different set here. Because I'm not able to simulate everything exactly like the test here, I'm going to have to explain. Okay, so, but we'll do our best to get through this two-part task and simulate it as much as possible. When you see the first screen here, okay, you're going to have two choices, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to choose one for you because we're not able to do, both choices, unfortunately. We're kind of limited with this, this format of presentation. So I'm going to force you to choose the large floor fan, but I'm still going to give you the preparation time, 1 minute preparation time to think about why the large floor fan would be better. On the real test, you'd be able to choose between these two, but for today, I'm going to force you to choose the large floor fan, okay? All right, ready? I hope so. Here, your preparation time is starting now. Okay, your preparation time is complete. Hopefully you were able to take some notes and really think about why the large floor fan might be a better choice here. And you're really trying to understand the context. but it's a good opportunity here with the time that you're given to really think about how you might persuade someone, regardless of whatever other choice you're presented with, why this one is the best choice. And I would really encourage you to take some notes there. All right, so we're going to move forward. This is part 2. Now you're presented with the other choice, and in this case, it's your family. So remember, think about that, how you might talk to your family, maybe a little more formal than your friend, although we're not always necessarily like that. But I'm going to start the preparation time, and again, you're given another minute to think about this comparison that you're going to make. After the preparation time, then you'll be speaking for 1 minute. Okay, so your preparation time begins now. Okay, your preparation time is complete. Start speaking now. Okay, your speaking time is complete. That's 1 minute. Hopefully you're able to come up with some good ideas about why the large floor fan is better than the handheld mini fan. So as you can see, this is a kind of a ridiculous choice, and one of the challenges here would be to not make fun of that choice and to really focus on persuading them regardless. So I'm curious how you were able to come up with some of your ideas, how you felt about your response, whether you liked this task at all. Any comments you want to make, feel free to type them in the questions box. I always find it interesting to see what you think about the task, or maybe how you felt about your response. Vivek says, will we always have such choices? I think you mean, would the other choice always be as ridiculous as this? No, not always. Sometimes I've seen choices that aren't that ridiculous, and sometimes they are a little bit more silly. So you have to be prepared for anything that could happen. I do find that usually that second choice, your family's choice or friend's choice, is not as good as yours, and that helps to be more persuasive. I think it would be very difficult if their choice was better than yours. So it's good that at least it's usually worse. Basir, you said, although bigger, but safer as I have a little child. Good. So I think that's good. So the floor fan is safer because of having children around. I think that's helpful. The handheld mini fan may hurt somebody. It's possible, depending on how strong it is, right? That's possible. Let's see. Vivek said it's funny to compare. Yeah, I agree. And Shamin said, I felt the time is going very fast to cover the plan, right? 60 seconds, I think when you have a lot to say, 60 seconds is not enough time, which is a good problem to have. The challenge there is to focus on what's most important and making sure you get your important points in before the time runs out. I think that's what's important, not to go into too much detail and get stuck on one point without getting all your main points in. Mira said, I think many fans for many people in the family. So the cost would be the same, right? So if you had purchased many fans, you know, eventually the cost is going to be the same. Plus, they look a little weak, and maybe they'll, you know, they're made of plastic, so they'll probably break, and then you'll need more. So you could also add that in as well. Good. Let's see. Katia Loy said, I get nervous when answering because I don't know how I should speak, formal or informal. I think that's a good point. I think that takes practice. I wouldn't worry about being too formal. It's not an academic language test. It's a general proficiency test. The level of formality really is just context. It depends on who you're talking to and what the situation is. So, yeah, I know that's a little difficult to think about. And I think as you listen to more samples, you get a sense of that. Good. Let's see. The handheld minifan is useless. Yes, I agree. Although it's kind of nice to have one sometimes just for personal use. But in comparison to the other one, the question is, would you want to call it useless in your response? And I don't know, I might not say that. It might offend the other person. You might want to be more diplomatic, more friendly in your response. But nothing wrong with saying it's useless. So again, it's up to you. Katia Loy said, I mentioned that I purchased the fan and it's durable and I was able to move it from room to room. Excellent. It is portable too, right? Even though it's bigger, it's still portable. Unlike other fans, they're harder to move. So I think that's good. Durable is good. If you can think of another word to use other than words in the in there, great. But if not, use the words that you see as well. All right. Let's see. I'm just Huda said it was difficult to finish in 60 seconds. All you wanted to say. I would say, you know, really pay attention to the time that you have, and as you notice the time moving on, then quickly switch your point. Maybe you don't elaborate as much as you'd like to on one point in order to make sure that you can get another point as well. That would be my advice there, and practice, of course. The more you can practice. I know someone asked earlier, where can I get more questions? And we're going to be talking about some options for you to get as many questions together as you can through our practice test, but also you can make them up. You know, there's nothing wrong with making them up. Once you know generally, you've seen enough questions, you get a sense of what's being asked, you can then start making up some questions and see how you might respond to them. I think it's still helpful to do that. Good. And Wyatt said, I'll just talk to my mom like, if you ask me to buy the handheld mini fan, which means you want to put me off to buy a fan, can I be negative? So for example, you're talking to your mom and you're kind of getting in almost a little bit of an argument about it. I would avoid that. I don't think that's probably the best approach. I would try to be positive in your response and polite to the other person, and stay away from a negative tone too much. Would probably be a better approach. But a little bit of negativity is okay. A little bit of humor is okay. It's just a question of how much you put into there of that, I would say. Key says, I think minifan using battery is not as environmentally friendly. I agree. And that's a great point. And that's a very persuasive point. And that's really what you want to try to do, is come up with persuasive points like that. It shows your ability to use language in a new situation, to come up with ideas and be able to express them. And that's the challenge there as well. All right, very good. Let's move forward because I know you'd love to listen to a sample response. This is a level 9. Okay, so let's listen.
I agree that we have choices, but I believe the large floor fan is the most suitable for our requirement because we require the fan to be installed in our basement. I agree that the ceiling fan is a good option for our living room, but since we require the fan for the basement, I would say $49.99 is an affordable option and we would not require any extra installation. The portable mini fan, though just requires a battery, is not a good option for our basement because it wouldn't cover the area. It's a good option for outdoors, but since our requirement is for the basement, I would go with the large floor fan, and it can be moved around the house and used for different requirements later.
Okay, so I like this response. I think they did a good job of not only being persuasive about their own option, but also being polite to the other person, and even acknowledging that there are some good aspects to their choice, right? So in that sense, it's good. So always people will ask, why not level 10? Why is it not a higher level, right? I think Vivek wants to know it was good. So why not a higher level? And that's tough to answer in just a simple way because there are so many factors that go into this. There are multiple raters involved in every response, and anytime that there is a conflict between 2 raters or 3 raters, then an additional benchmark rater will come in and help to make sure that it's clear. And so I think the rating process is very good. It's rigorous. And it's because of the factors involved, and there's so many, and these are the 4 dimensions that we're talking about and all the factors involved in it. So it's a lot to consider, and for us, it's difficult. We look at it and say it's a good response, right? But unfortunately, we focus on various things that we think are important, but not necessarily what raters are looking at in totality. All right, but let's just look at these dimensions and think about the positives here, or some of the strengths and maybe some of the weaknesses. She does provide several reasons. It's needed for the basement, which she created that. It's affordable and it's portable. And those were all positive, persuasive reasons, I think. She connects and develops the ideas. They need a portable fan for the basement and an affordable option that doesn't require installation. Also notice the language being used, but also the sentence construction, the grammar is pretty good as well. She uses, in terms of vocabulary, she uses common words and phrases quite accurately, suitable for the environment, cover the area, and can be moved around the house. Some of the figures of speech or idioms are good, like I would say. And she also says I would go with, which means I would choose. And that's a nice expression to be using there as well. More complex vocabulary would further enhance this dimension though. And so there's always room for improvement there, I think. Listenability was quite good. She starts a little slow, but picks up towards the end, which is good. There were some pauses and interjections and self-corrections, but not much at all. And complex sentences were good, but a little more variety in sentence structure, I think, would be a way to maximize listenability here. She provides suggestions and reasons that are relevant to the task. She uses the time well, I think, especially towards the end. And her tone is good. And I like that she started with, I agree that we have choices. So she's trying to be polite to the other person, and that's helpful as well. Okay, I think in the interest of time, we're going to keep moving forward so I don't get too far behind, but I really do appreciate your comments. And I also like that Cameron's doing a great job here responding to your questions as well. So you might get a response from Cameron, or I may try to respond to your question in the session as well. But there was one question from Win here. She talked about the ceiling fan too. Yes, you noticed that? She shouldn't have, and it's not the end of the world that she did. Again, probably stuck in her mind from the part one. It's not the end of the world, but you know, she probably shouldn't have mentioned that. But certainly you could mention other fans in your response, other kinds of fans quickly. To mention them is not wrong because it might be relevant. As long as you connect it to your response, then it's okay. But good that you noticed that, Win. Let's see. Wenyu says, in his or her opinion, we should talk about 3 reasons to support ours and also use 1 negative reason why we should not choose. I think that might work. I think it might be hard to talk about 4 reasons in a 60-second response, but it's possible. But certainly I think that might work to balance your response. So you might be able to do that. I think it's okay to talk about maybe a negative to your response. I wouldn't talk about it too long, and it might be in support of the other person's choice a little bit. But the goal, remember, is to come back to your choice and be strong in your choice ultimately. So good. Let's move on to task 6, which is dealing with a difficult situation. So usually this one, you get a more time in your preparation again, as with task 5, because there's more information to process and you'll have to understand the context and the choices that you have. And so in this one, we can see, I'll just show you this one, which is a little bit bigger. A customer comes into the store where you work. And so we're looking at the context. So now you have to imagine you are working in a store. He wants to return a shirt that is ripped. Your coworker will not return the shirt because the customer has worn it. Okay, and it's clear that obviously the shirt has been worn. It's not new anymore. But the customer is arguing that the shirt was not good quality and it ripped easily. So the customer is not going away. So you get some time to really process that context, think about what you might want to do in that situation, but then you're given an actual situation to think about a choice that you need to make. You can talk to your coworker and explain why the shirt should be returned, okay? Because your coworker does not want to return it. Or you talk to the customer and explain why the shirt cannot be returned. So your choice here is dependent on what you think you're able to do better with. How can you be more persuasive? What ideas do you have that will help you to get through the 60-second response, right? So in this case, a lot of people do choose to talk to their coworker. Maybe it's the easier choice to just accept it. But you need to come up with good reasons for why you would do that and how you might be able to convince your coworker why that's a better choice. And then the other one would be to talk to the customer. I think that's challenging, but you might be able to come up with some good reasons to convince the customer. And here creativity and imagination is fine. You want to think about other things that you could bring into this that aren't in the context at all, but certainly would make sense in this context. So let's listen to a sample response. Again, this is level 8. So it's missing some things necessary for level 9, but it's still a good response. So let's look at some of the strengths and weaknesses as we listen, okay?
Hello, Eugene. I just heard that you had an argument with the customer regarding the t-shirts. I think we have to return these t-shirts because as per the customer, she just wore them 1 time, and it is, I guess it clearly says that it's poor quality. Well, and then before the other time, I remember that the same thing happened with another customer, and there was my supervisor, and the supervisor said we can refund the item when it clearly lacks some quality. And I think this brand has some warranty, so we can clearly double check with the manager. But I believe that we have to provide a warranty and provide a return for this customer as based on our previous experience. Thank you.
Okay, so I think they did a good job in terms of coming up with some ideas that might be persuasive in this situation. And in that sense, they did good. In terms of content, language, maybe there are some challenges here, but overall, I think they used basic vocabulary very well. You know, so any comments you might have, feel free. It's a little unusual maybe to say thank you at the end here in this context. So that's a little unusual, but overall, I think there are many positives to this response. And so you might wonder why it's not a level 9. Why didn't this do a little bit better? Or maybe you think it's actually a little bit lower as well. But if you have any comments, feel free to make them in the questions box. But let's look at some of the analysis here. So they do provide 3 reasons. Oh, wow, Amira thought only level 5 maybe. Wow. Yeah, I can see why you might think that, but I do think the ideas were good enough that it's going to at least, you know, get up to level 6, 7, and it got to 8, I think, because of good vocabulary, and maybe it's very close to level 9 as well, but we don't know that. So exactly where it fit in terms of score. Remember, if it's you know, 7.5 or higher, it's going to round up to 6. To 8. So sometimes it's just reaching level 8, and sometimes it seems almost close enough, but not quite. Good. Shamin says a lot of and o interjections, right? But the answer was logical and suitable, right? And that's what firmly places it at level 8. It has to make sense, and there has to be some reasons in there that make sense, that are logical. Without that, it's very hard to get to a level 8, I find. So it needs that. It just needs these other things as well. They use transitions. They're organized. They could improve again in transition use a little bit. Again, using because, and so. We use these ones a lot. It's an opportunity to improve a little bit there with some better transitions. Yeah, Mira said referring to an old experience with the supervisor was good. I agree. And that's one of the strengths of their response, is they were able to imagine this happening before and that a manager gave approval. And I think that's quite a persuasive argument for the coworker to consider. Vocabulary, they used common words and phrases well. Quality, brand, double check. Not too bad, but here vocabulary was what was bringing the response down a little bit from a level 9 or higher. So a little bit better vocabulary use would have helped. And listenability. Pronunciation was clear. That part of it was great. There were interjections that did interfere with flow, as Shamin noticed that as well. They did use a variety of sentence structures, but they lost control over some of the more complex expressions. So this t-shirts, only one times, and as based on. And when there's a number of these problems, they maybe didn't create confusion here, but certainly it's going to start to affect things a little bit in terms of sentence structure, grammar, and that brings it down from the level 9 as well. Good. And task fulfillment, they definitely understood the question. They spoke for the entire time. I think they did quite well here. Saying thank you at the end is a little awkward, but overall their tone was very good. Okay, let's do some practice. Later we're going to look at a level 9 or level 8 and look at how to improve it. But for this one, we're going to do another practice session of task 6. I think it's important to practice this one because it's challenging, I find. You're going to get a new situation and new choices as well. You'll get the same preparation time and speaking time as on the test. Okay, and try to record yourself and really try to speak out loud. I know, it seems a little weird. Maybe there are people around you or something, but try not to worry about anybody else and just practice. So important to get that actual practice of real questions. Okay, we're going to start. I'm going to flip the screen and your preparation time will start, okay? Okay, your preparation time begins now. Okay, your preparation time is complete. Start speaking now. Okay, your speaking time is complete. Take a breath. Hopefully you're able to process all of the information here in your preparation time and come up with a couple of ideas that might be persuasive, or at least help you get through this question. It's an interesting one. It's a difficult situation. Once again, you work in a store, a pet store. You have to deal with two customers who are kind of have a difference of opinion, and you have to provide some advice for them without maybe making one upset. So without just, a dog is much better than a cat, and these are the reasons why. Definitely get a cat. Can everybody hear me? I hope you're able to hear me. I know Anna is having trouble here. There's no audio. Okay, good. Leah can hear me. So, yeah, Y says he can hear me, and Michael, Sally, Mira, and Win. So thanks. So I guess maybe one person's having a problem. Okay, Anna's back. Good. All right, sometimes the audio does cut out, and then sometimes it'll just come back. It's an internet lag. But anyway, we're okay. So let's consider some of your responses. How did you feel about it? Huda says, hard to think of more than one idea. It's good to have one idea and explain. Is it okay to have just one idea and explain it? Well, if you only have one idea, then that's all you can do, and you probably develop it as much as you can. But it's better to have a couple, at least, to get you through the question and to be able to score well. So it's just tough when you don't come up with the ideas. And so this situation in a store, hopefully you're able to come up with a couple of ideas to help persuade them. Yeah, Vivek says it's difficult to have more than one idea sometimes. I think, I would say I've seen some samples that score 9 or above that only had one idea. It's not impossible to do that, but while you're developing it, it's almost like there's additional ideas in there that, maybe aren't fully developed themselves, but the idea is fully developed and with other kind of little ideas. And that can get you through and still you can score well. Let's see. Wynn says it's difficult because she loves both cats and dogs, right? And so you can take that approach in the response as well. You can say that, but you don't necessarily have to give your own opinion about this, but you could start talking about maybe some of the benefits of having a cat versus a dog and give them things to think about, right? Um, so, but ultimately you really should have an opinion. Um, you know, I've seen responses where people actually imagine what the other person has said. So for example, you might say, oh, I heard that you're both very busy people. You both have full-time jobs. And, it's very hard to take care of a dog because they require, at least 3 walks a day. And they need a lot of attention, unlike a cat. So maybe it's more suitable for you to have a cat over a dog. So you can even not necessarily express your own personal opinion about it, but find reasons to help them make their decision. Good. Let's look at some of these other comments. Aravind has said it's good to have an idea which might not be correct. Is it okay to have an idea which is not correct? I don't think raters care necessarily whether it's correct or not. They want it to be logical though. So if it's not logical, there might be an issue in content coherence. But whether it's correct or not, or factual, is not really that important. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But sometimes if it's not correct, it's not going to be logical. Key says, a puppy is always an amazing friend to grow up with. If later on you guys are planning on getting a little baby, great. I think that's a good idea. That's I think a good thing to be thinking about and letting them know, kind of giving them things to think about in order to help them make a decision. Mira says cats are independent and don't need as much petting, right? And so it really depends on the couple, right? What are they looking for? How often will they be home to be able to, do they have children? These are things you can think about. And while you can't create a dialogue, unfortunately, you can imagine that you've already spoken to them about this and just state it. Oh, you said that you want to have kids later. So, you really need to think about whether a cat or dog is better and blah, 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 right? Continue. Armando says, if you think in a practical way, then it's going to be easy to make a choice. I agree. If you start to think about what a cat is like to have and what a dog is like to have, and you think of the practicality of it, then it becomes a little easier to make a choice. And that's something you can advise the couple as well, to start thinking about the practical aspects of having a cat or a dog. Great. And Katia said, I made a suggestion that the dog would be a better pet because it will never forget their kindness. That's true. Dogs really are loyal once you get their loyalty. It's amazing. Good. And purchase it because it's a rescue dog. That's a great idea, Katia. Good. And it's better for their protection, and dogs are better company. So good. You're expressing your opinion on this and letting them know why a dog is better. Nothing wrong with that. Well done. Jang Hyojang, your name's probably Hyojang, right? I made the suggestion that cat can stay at home alone 1 to 2 days, and they can go camping in the summer without worrying about their pet. Yes. And that's the kind of detail you want as well. Add that detail. It provides the kind of language, sentence structure, all of that they're looking for, the raters are looking for. It's not just content, right? Good content, but also that ability to express longer sentences, better vocabulary, as fluent as you can, all of those things. So great. Shamin has mentioned the security for the family, right? That a dog would provide more security. Generally, it depends. If those little dogs, maybe not so much. And Mira said, does it make a difference if you make the more unusual choice? I don't think so. I don't think raters really care. They're really just looking at what you produced. And they don't think too much about what's easier or more difficult. They shouldn't anyway. You know, they really should be focused on your language and what you're actually able to produce. So really, I would say go with the choice that you feel more comfortable speaking about. Not choosing something more difficult because you think you'll get a bonus point for that. I doubt it. But certainly you want to be able to get through the response well. That's really the most important thing. And Huda finally has said, if you have kids at home, I would suggest having a cat, as the dog might scare kids, right? Certainly, and there are examples in the news as well of dogs actually harming kids as well. So you might mention that. But again, you try to be as clear as possible. You try to use good explanations and your imagination and creativity here, and get the language to be as clear as possible with you know, good sentence structure and grammar and all of that. All right, let's move forward. I'm sure you'd like to hear a level 9 response for the same question, so let's listen to this now.
I strongly agree with the husband because I believe buying a cat is much easier for the couple to take. For them, it's much easier for them to take care of the pet because of course the cat is smaller and it needs less care than the dog. It's not noisy at night. Given that the dog keeps barking and keeps barking, and you know, he keeps doing certain stuff that are annoying to some people. Cats are more friendly, and they are not harmful. Otherwise, or nevertheless, sometimes dogs can be really aggressive, especially when they see other dogs. When they see other dogs, they become very aggressive, and sometimes they can bite.
Okay, so you might feel, well, why is this a level 9? It should be maybe less. What I want you to realize here is that as the tasks move forward, they do get more difficult. So we don't see such amazing responses, you know, at the more difficult tasks, but they can still score well. But they have problems, right? So this achieved a level 9. Maybe it was barely a level 9, but as Mira noticed as well, he did not address his response to someone. He's not, you know, addressing the person in the store directly, the couple. And so that's going to reduce his grade, reduce his score somewhat in terms of task fulfillment, but it doesn't ruin his response. So is it okay? Well, no, but yes, meaning you can make up for anything that might be weak by doing really well in other areas. Content and coherence is important, though. It needs to make sense. And so this person is making sense. The other things are maybe a little less, you know, whether he addresses the person is just one part of task fulfillment, but he certainly understands the question, right? So maybe doesn't score as well on task fulfillment, but that's only one factor involved. And he does repeat here, keeps, as Huda noticed, he keeps saying keeps a couple times. Also, some language is a little bit, you know, maybe imprecise, like stuff, saying stuff. You want to avoid using stuff, but you know, there's going to be these problems in speaking. It's going to happen all the time, and we try to focus on everything here. What are the positives and weaknesses in order to give a fair assessment here? So he does provide several reasons. Cats are easier to care for, less noisy, more friendly, and less harmful. They're all good reasons. He clearly states his opinion, provides details and examples. The ideas are organized, but the linking words, again, can be improved as well. He uses suitable words and phrases. Dogs keep barking, annoying people become aggressive. That's good vocabulary. but some awkward linking words like otherwise, nevertheless. So here he's trying to use better, linking words or phrases, but maybe not as successfully as he could. And that takes practice, right? It's certainly encouraged to use them though, but on a test, you want to use ones that are working for you, that make sense. Some words are vague, like certain stuff. Shamin's asked, some words are vague, or sorry, is it okay to say an introductory greeting to them? Yes. In fact, I recommend that. Maybe not a greeting like, hi, how are you doing? But I would certainly address them directly and say, oh, I heard that you are both considering getting a pet here, but you have a difference of opinion. I'd like to give you my advice based on my experience with, I've had a cat and a dog. That'd be a great start to kind of give your own, greeting plus a little bit of context for why you're giving this, and you're directly addressing them, which is really important. So important to address, but again, it's not going to ruin your response if you don't as well. And Herman said he's a little surprised that this is a level 9 because of the amount of uhs and interjections there. And I can understand that. I will just say that raters, they consider what's typical of this response amongst many test takers as well. So, ultimately, I think this task is hard. And so we're not going to see the amazing responses that we might expect if we had more time to prepare and all of that. Even, fluent speakers will get very challenged in these tasks, and a lot of interjections will happen. And so, it affects the score, but again, there are so many factors involved. In terms of listenability, pronunciation was good here. He did have an accent, but it didn't really influence understanding, and that's what you want to aim for. And the rhythm was fairly good. There were no lengthy pauses. There were some interjections as well, as Herman noticed as well. And that does, change things a little bit. You're not able to get as much content in. There were some grammar errors, but they did try some more complex sentence structures, and I encourage you to try to practice with those. And when you feel more comfortable with more complex constructions, then certainly start using them in your responses. So example, like when they see other dogs, they become very aggressive. That's good. Task fulfillment was good, but they did not address the coworker directly. But they certainly understood the task, and they were friendly, but they were quite firm in their tone as well, which is fine for this task. You can be a little bit more polite if you like. You don't want to offend, in this situation, either the man or the woman. But I don't think this person would be offending anyone with their response. All right, so here are some of the key strategies. Speak directly to the person. Be considerate, but you still want to be firm. Each situation is a little bit different, so you have to think about the context. Speak tactfully in that context. Outline the problem, make your request, and provide effective reasons to support your decision. Okay, now let's move on to task 7, expressing opinions. So here we're going to work on a response and try to improve it as well. So I'll show you a level 8, but I want to work on improving it again and try to make it a little bit better. So the question here is, do you think the government should limit how much money company bosses make? Explain your reasons. So you're given a question like this and then given only 30 seconds to think about it, and then hopefully take some notes, maybe have at least 3 ideas in that time to then begin to speak about it, because you will need to speak for 90 seconds on this one. And that can be challenging if you don't have enough ideas, right? So here is the task. I just wanted to point out this is where your question will be, and of course where your preparation time and recording time. But let's listen to this level 8 response, okay?
This is a very difficult question. I do think that governments should limit how much money company bosses make for at least two main reasons. The first one is ethical. If you provide bosses no limit in their earning, this will raise significant social disparities and will create more friction among the society. However, the limit that the government should put on the earning is not easy to determine. Competition, willingness to improve our position and career is often moved by money and earning and salary. Why someone should aim for a higher and more responsible job with more difficulties, more duties, when the money is not so significant and someone else has a limit. The governments will have to find solution to promote this cutting salaries, maintaining a significant benefit for the bosses.
Okay, so we can see he struggles, of course. He's a bit slow, hesitant in coming up with the words to say, and this is common because this is a new, maybe something he never thought about before. If you're presented with an opinion, you have to give an opinion about something you haven't thought about, it's going to be difficult and you're going to struggle through the response in this way. But I think he did a great job in coming up with ideas. Does he go a little bit off topic? Is he really focused on the task as much as he could be? Any comments you might have, let me know. But I want to go over the analysis a little bit. So let's look at the number of ideas here. He does state two main reasons, and they're ethics and competition. And but I would say they're not really well connected. If we look at the second part, where he starts talking about competition, it's kind of not really supporting his opinion anymore. He's kind of gone a little bit off track. And that's a bit of a challenge there. And this is going to happen more often in more difficult tasks where we're not really sure where we're going with our argument, because we only have 30 seconds to prepare, right? So we're kind of thinking on the go. We're thinking as we're speaking. And I think this test taker was impacted by that. But notice they were still able to get a level 8, which is great. They do provide details and examples to support their opinion, social disparity, and but others, they don't really support the opinion anymore. And this is where they go off track. They start talking about the motivation to earn, and that if you start limiting salaries, it will impact people's motivation to earn more money. So this is, I think a little bit of a challenge in his response, and why he was not able to get to a level 9, even despite some really good language being used. He does use some linking or transitions. The first one is, but he doesn't really follow this up later. You notice he says the first one is ethical, but then we don't see another transition to help indicate where the second idea starts. And I think this is because he kind of got off track. But the vocabulary is good. Ethical disparities, friction, position, career, cutting salaries. Does a very good job with the vocabulary here. And he uses some phrases accurately. Moved by money is not bad. He takes a while to come up with that, but he is able to say moved by money. But others are imprecise, like among the society. Listenability, I think pretty good. Pronunciation is usually clear, but there were some challenges because of his pronunciation of end sounds, like went to, have a. This can create some problems in understanding, and you want to be, try to improve in those areas. If you do have pronunciation issues and you speak too fast, it also creates sometimes a problem in understanding, and you want to, slow down a little bit to make sure you're understood. Rhythm could be improved. This is where he pauses a little bit too much as he's thinking for what to say. But some constructions in some of the more complex constructions are a little bit awkward, like not so significant than someone else's limit. So it's a little strange, but at least he was able to make a comparative form here, which is good. All right, and not all information is directly relevant to the opinion expressed at the beginning. It's good that he does express an opinion at the beginning. However, he kind of goes off track, as I've mentioned. But he does provide a complete response and establishes an appropriate tone for expressing opinions. But let's look at how we could improve this response. So I want to look at the opening. So this is a very difficult question, not really necessary to start that way, but it's okay, it's not going to hurt you. But I'd like to delete that, maybe. But I do think the government should limit how much money company bosses make for at least 2 reasons. That's a good start, and it's very structured, right? And so it's kind of how we might, write a thesis statement or a controlling statement for an essay, for example. And you can take that approach with this response because you're expressing your opinion. It's good to let the listener know what's coming. However, I've decided to improve this by providing a little more context before I express my opinion. And this, I think, is a nice thing to do. You don't want to spend too much time on it, though, but a little bit of a context. The top executives in some of the biggest companies in the world can make millions of dollars, while many workers struggle just to make enough to pay the bills. Here I'm getting good vocabulary. I'm, creating more complex construction here by using while to connect these 2 ideas. And then I introduce my opinion. For this reason, I believe it's necessary for governments to restrict how much money top executives make. And so I'm using vocabulary here as well. Now, instead of saying the first one is ethical, I've changed this to at a societal level. When some citizens can make millions more than others, it creates serious social disparities, which is a vocabulary that the test taker used, that can have strong potential to increase friction. Friction is another word that this test taker used among people who belong to different socioeconomic classes. So again, I've added socioeconomic classes to improve the vocabulary use here. This is a more formal response. You're giving your opinion. Your ability to use more advanced vocabulary will really suit this response if you can come up with the words, right? And then if salaries are closer, there can be more harmony, less stress and anxiety, and hopefully less crime. I wanted to add this in because I'm adding a lot of ideas in one sentence. And your ability to do this is also going to improve your content and coherence. You're going to be able to score much better by getting more ideas into a shorter amount of time or space. Okay, and then here's where he went a bit off track. And so I'd like to delete all of that because it's not really adding. In fact, it's detracting from his opinion here. So this is difficult. So I decided to go in a different direction. I'm using a transition here. Furthermore, companies who do not distribute salaries fairly may be limiting their own long-term potential. So my second idea was related to, even the employees in the company will suffer, and maybe the company will suffer if salaries are not more, reasonable for everybody. And then I said, after all, if workers cannot afford to live reasonably, it will impact how productive they can be for the company. Also, more workers may leave, which will create the need for continual training. Notice I'm fully developing these two main ideas, and I'm looking at it at a societal level, but also for the company itself. And so that was my strategy in answering this one. And then I didn't want to end with this because I think it's not really related. The government will have to find a solution. So I changed it a little bit. While I don't think government should dictate salaries to companies, guidelines are needed so that these issues can be minimized. So here I'm taking a kind of middle approach. I do think that the government needs to do something. I just don't think that it should be, absolute rules, maybe guidelines, and maybe try to shame them into making sure that salaries are reasonable. So what would this response be? I can't really tell you. Mira wants to know what this response would be. We're not raters and we're not able to determine that, but I can tell you it's going to be at least a level 9 for sure, and probably higher. But the point here is that, if you can do this with your own responses, you're going to slowly improve. So I would recommend any response you're doing, if it's a timed response, to record it, write out what you're saying, and then look for opportunities for improvement here. And slowly over time, you'll start to be able to do more of that naturally as you're actually answering. It'll come to you a little bit better. It takes time, unfortunately. It'd be nice if we could just have, perfect ways of answering and just memorize them, but it's not going to work because you never know what you're going to get. And so it's best to practice. Also do non-timed practice and take your time and see how you maybe write out a response instead of speaking it to see what you could think about. The point is to get better ideas, stronger ideas, and to use language effectively to express them and support them. Okay. All right. We're going to skip this practice, but I would like you to show you a level 9 transcript here, a test taker response at level 9 this is for a different question. I guess I need to show you the question. Do you think all high school students should be required to learn a second language? Explain your reasons. So I think it's a hard question, and as Sally said, the last one was a really difficult question. I think, it's nice when you get one that's just you've thought about before and you can easily come up with the ideas. This is, I guess it really depends on how many questions that you've practiced. The more you practice, the better. There are many examples online of questions for expressing opinions. I would recommend collecting them and trying to come up with at least 2 main ideas for each of them. That way, over time, I find that these ideas will come to you quickly because they'll overlap. They'll start to overlap, and you may have to adjust your ideas a little bit to suit it, but I really think that those ideas, after a while, they just become the same ideas applied to different situations. All right, so let's listen to this sample response.
Yes, I think it's very beneficial for high school students to be required to learn a second language, especially here in Canada, to learn French. I've seen it in the workplace. It's very beneficial workers to have a second language, especially French, because first thing, more compensation if you're bilingual, French bilingual. Right, that's first thing for me, and of course it opens up a whole new field of work where if you're not bilingual or you don't have a second language, you will never be able to enter. So that opens up different opportunities. Also, not even just not opportunities in Canada. Oh yeah, so you also have the option to work for the federal government, which is very good as well. And also, yeah, if you have plans of going abroad, going out of the country to work or to study, it's very beneficial if you know, at least understand a little bit the second language, right? Not some, of course, if you're going to be working and you're going to be using a second language, it's very beneficial if you're fluent in it. But some people, if you're just visiting other countries, going on vacations, beneficial if you at least learn the basics or know the basics.
Okay, so this person I think has great fluency, although they struggle here and there. They're able to continue and keep it going throughout the entire 90-second response. So well done. I think this person definitely deserves a level 9 for their ideas and for their language use. And some of the sentence construction is good as well. So, it's not perfect. And of course, we can always find problems and we can improve, like, for example, transitions as well. You'll notice mostly using so and as well. But I think they're just able to come up with enough ideas in here and be very persuasive to score well. In terms of the analysis, they do provide 3 main reasons here. So compensation, a new field of work, and studying or working abroad. Great. They develop some of these reasons with supporting details. So like, for example, working for the federal government, which was helpful. Organizes the response with common linking words, and could improve a little bit there. But overall, very good in content and coherence. Vocabulary, common words and phrases are used well, like bilingual, field of work, fluent, and some figures of speech are used as well, which is good. Opens up, learn the basics. And a little more precision, though, is needed in some areas. So beneficial, different opportunities, a little bit. You try not to be as vague in your descriptions. Try to be a little bit more precise. But overall, this person did well. Pronunciation was very good. I think this is one of the strengths of their responses, even though they do correct. They don't interfere with flow. If you do need to correct yourself, don't spend a lot of time on it. You want to keep moving forward, right? So to not interfere with the flow of your response. They do use some complex sentence structures here, the if clauses that are used. If this, then that is good to try to use that. But a little more variety would help to maximize. Okay, and finally, task fulfillment. They did definitely understand the question, and all the information provided was relevant. The tone was appropriate for this task, and they spoke for the whole time. They didn't have a closing sentence, but overall, a good job, level 9. And maybe, they almost got a level 10. We don't really know, but it seemed like a pretty good response to me. So in terms of strategies, try to understand the question. Be sure your answer is on topic. Quickly decide if you have to answer yes or no based on your opinion, and try to be, clear of what your opinion is right from the beginning. Okay, as clear as possible. There's remember, it's a 90-second response, so you don't have to start directly with your opinion. You can start with a little bit of context, but get to that opinion fairly quickly within the first, 15 seconds or so. You want to be the listener to know what your opinion is. Then at least 3 reasons. Again, this is a suggestion. If you only can come up with 2 and you develop them really well, you can still score well. But 3 is recommended. For each reason, make sure you give examples, develop those reasons, and try to be logical. And transitions are so helpful in creating that logic, that flow, the coherence that's necessary for the listener to follow along. And so if you can, keep working on transitions and trying to improve your use of them, especially for this one, expressing your opinion, which is a bit more formal than talking to your friends or family, right? Okay, let's move on to the last task, describing an unusual situation. I like this task. It's one of my favorites, actually, but it really depends on the picture you get. It will be a picture-based task, like task 5 and task 3 and 4. You get pictures, but this picture is going to be a weird one, like these apples here that are square. You're going to get something that's not exactly clear how to describe. This one's not too bad, though. It's not that unusual, this picture. But this is a situation that you're going to be given. And in the picture, you have to use whatever's in the picture to help you get through the situation. So you need to look at the situation. In this case, it's a friend who invited you to come to his home, and you are trying to find his place, but you're having difficulty. So this is your view, and you think you know where the street is, but you're not entirely sure. So you have to call your friend. And in this task, as in many of the other ones, you do need to talk directly to the person. I think it was Yan, Su Yan, said that task 5 didn't have that clearly stated on the strategies that you need to speak to the other person in task 5. And yeah, it should be added then for task 5 as well. You're speaking directly to another person, and always note which ones state that, and look at the instructions to be clear about whether you're talking to another person or whether you're just speaking, to nobody or giving an opinion, like task 7. You don't need to speak to another person in task 7. Okay, so remember to pay close attention to this. Remember, call the instructions here at the end. Call your friend, explain in detail where you are standing, and ask him how to find his house. You want to do all those things, and make sure you cover all of it. All right, I think one of the challenges here in this task is trying to describe things that are not easy to describe. When we looked at task 3, it's more of a general everyday thing. Maybe it's a gym, a grocery store, a food court, something that you might have seen before and you may know the language. Here, you may not know the language that you need to use, and that's one of the challenges. But you have to use whatever language you have to get through this task. So I want to look at the picture a little bit closer, and I'm going to ask you for your suggestions here. If you were wanting to describe this, what the arrow is pointing to, what might you describe it as? So I'm just curious. You can write in the questions box anything that you might, any vocabulary you might use to describe it. Good. So Leah says a parkade door. That's good. Parkade is an interesting word. You might want to look that one up. It usually refers to an entire parking lot. And I think it works here okay. It's not common to use for residential use, parkade. It's usually for a mall or something. But I think it would work just fine. And it's good that you use that word as well. Garage door, Mira says, and that works as well. Often garage door is used just for someone's personal garage, but certainly this would work as well. Again, you have to use your own language, whatever you can come up with to describe. Leah says entrance to the parkade. Basir says door of a parking space. I like that. You've used your language well there. Camilla said a garage door, and so did Katia Loy. Vivek said underpass. That's not bad, but an underpass usually is for on a highway when you drive under a bridge. So, but not bad because you're trying to, that word under is useful there. Leah says garage entrance. So does Garavaya. And Armando added big garage entrance. Shamin said garage. Very good. We see garage door. So garage is the most common here. So commonly this would be called an underground garage. So that works. Underground specifying that it's under people's homes. It's usually used for apartment buildings, but a parking garage, a garage door with sign above that says slow. All of these things can be useful. And everything that everyone said in the questions box, no problem. So this is what we want to do. Good. And what about this? What would you call this? Also, I'm just going to mention some of the other things. Alan said color, materials, and shapes will probably be something that I focus on in this task. Absolutely. Color can be very useful. Shapes can be useful. Of course, knowing the vocabulary is useful, but certainly using the language that we have to describe as best we can is also useful. Herman said, has a suggestion for starting. I am here at the end of the village and I am in front of the last houses on the street. I think that's a good opening for this. That's great. Make sure you're also talking directly to that person that you need to. You may want to start by addressing that person as well, by saying something like, you know, I'm almost here, Jack, but I can't find your house. And then continuing it on with what you're saying there. Good. In this one, we heard Leah says trash bin, trash container. Basir said garbage bin, Garavaya, big trash bin. And Katia has added some adjectives, color, good, color, and maybe size, shape, all of these things. She said big light blue garbage container, fantastic. And that's really what you want to get to, is as clear a description as possible. Kieran said a bulk garage big box. I like that. That works. Nadim used the word that is probably perfect for this, dumpster. So that's the one I would probably use. I call this a dumpster. A garbage container works. It's a little vague because we don't know the size, right? But you can add the size and the color to make that clear. Garbage bin is used a lot. A dumpster is very precise for this particular object. What about this house? I'm just looking at some of the other expressions here. Yeah, so Vivek says, again, location is going to be really important here, right? How we describe the location. On the left side, on my left, on my right. So Vivek's making that very clear. On my left, there's a letterbox and a dustbin. I think that's good. And if it's cut, Leah says, if it's cut, can we infer that it says above that, slow? Yes. If something's cut and you want to infer what it probably says, no problem there. Although here I can see slow very clearly, and it's good to mention the slow sign as well above the underground garage door. That's good. So in terms of the house, blue row of attached houses. I love that, Leah. That's perfect. I think that works. Mira says single-storied house, a blue single-storied house with sloping roofs that sits above the garage door. Fantastic. Sits above. That's great. You know, this kind of language is what you want. It's very good. Garavaya says a house with a big glass window. Nice. That's good. That might be, remember, you want to specify things that could be very helpful to the situation to help you know where you are. So the person you're talking to needs to hear things that could help them identify where you are. If all the houses had big windows, then it really probably wouldn't be helpful, but here it might be helpful because we don't see any other houses necessarily with big windows. Good. You can't see the full slide. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, here's a problem I'm dealing with. I can't quite get the full slide because of the way GoToWebinar does this. I'll be working on that, so I do apologize that if you're cut off on the bottom, I apologize for that. But a small blue house would be acceptable, a row house or a townhouse. Nobody mentioned townhouse, I don't think, but that would be helpful. This could be something like a light post, or a street light behind the bushes. Here, some suggestions were a Canada Post drop box, Shamin said. Evelyn called it a bungalow, the house, a blue bungalow with big glass windows and a purple curtain. Nice. Good. Again, it's not maybe a bungalow is not the most precise way because there's another house attached to it. So a townhouse or row house would probably be most accurate. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. This task is challenging and you got to use the language that you have. And you try to be as precise as you can. Your ability to be descriptive and to work through that is gonna maximize your score here. Good. A post box, a mailbox, a box to mail letters is other ways you could express that. Our Aravind said a big letterbox. That's useful as well. Katia Loy said blue house with open red curtains at the upstairs window, and also red curtain and the big glass doors with small trees in front and beside it. You can't get much clearer than that, Katie Aloy. That's very descriptive. One thing you want to remember, though, is you only have a limited time, 1 minute, and you want to get as much detail as you can around the entire scene so that the person that you're talking to is able to identify where you are and maybe give you some direction about how to get to their house. So that level of detail is excellent, but you want to make sure you have time for other things as well. Here, does anyone know what these are called? Or how you might describe it? These. Good. Shamin said maybe speed breaker. Good. Or Aravind said road bumps. Sally said maybe bumps. Leah and Alan, you got that exactly as we usually say it. So did Mira, Camilla, and Anuj as well. And Katie Aloy, speed bumps. So yellow speed bumps. That's probably the most accurate way to describe them. But if you didn't know, you might say bumps to slow down cars, or maybe something like that, right? Garavaya said speed preventers. I like that. When you say that, and I couldn't see it, and you said speed preventers, I think I could imagine exactly what you're talking about. And that's kind of the goal here. Even if you don't know what your what the precise vocabulary is, you use the language you have to try to explain it as best you can. So a driveway, a street, or a winding road that goes up a hill are other ways of explaining that. Jimmy says a yellow obstacle. Right. That's good. All right, so let's move forward. I'm sure you'd like to listen to a sample response, and then we're going to listen to some other samples as well that are a little higher level. So I'd like to actually move forward, make sure we finish on time. We'll skip the level 8 one. Actually, maybe no, let's go back and listen to that one. Do you want to practice? Who wants to practice this one? You'll look at a different picture. Would you rather, we only have time left to practice and maybe listen to 1 or 2 samples, but not much analysis, or we just listen to the samples and discuss them a bit more? Who wants to listen to a sample, or who wants to practice? So Mira said, do some practice. Let's see, thank you, keep voting. I see a little bit more practice than I do analysis. So yeah, let's do some practice. I'll try to get as much analysis in as possible as well. All right, so this one you're gonna see a new picture, and you're gonna do your best to try to describe what's happening to a friend. Okay, so ready? Here we go. Okay, your preparation time begins now. Okay, your preparation time is complete. Start speaking now. Okay, your speaking time is complete. Again, challenging, right? To describe things that are not very clear. This is an interesting picture. Involves people doing some interesting things musically, and I'm just curious how you dealt with this, how you were able to describe certain things. So Kieran says, two friends are trying to generate some sounds or melody. I like that. Very good expression. And they're using through steel garbage bins and wine glasses. Fantastic. I think that's a good overall picture there that you're providing. And you might want to go into more detail, right, about what exactly is happening with the steel garbage bins, and how are they, being used. So in this case, you definitely want to mention it's being used as a drum set. They're playing drums basically with garbage cans and maybe garbage can lids, trash cans, buckets, to make various sounds, right? And Mira's asked, do you have the picture in front of us? Definitely. In all cases where you're asked to speak about a picture, you will always be able to see the picture while you're answering. Absolutely. So that will definitely be in front of you while you're speaking. Okay. And any other comments on how you did with this or challenges? Vocabulary again here is the challenge. Describing the wine glasses can be a challenge, like, how does somebody make sounds with wine glasses, right? Kieran says they're using wooden sticks. That's excellent. I think that's very helpful. Armando has described it's a big green space where one blonde guy is making sounds with glass cups that are on the table. Next to him, there's another guy that is making music using garbage containers as drums. That's fantastic. Okay, now you have a 60-second response, so you gotta also make sure that you're speaking to someone. Here, remember, you're speaking directly to Katya, and you have to make sure that you also invite her to come. So you might start with something like, I was just walking downtown here. I went into a park and I saw these two amazing individuals. They look, young, and they're making music with the strangest, objects. I can't imagine it, but it actually sounds great. So there's one guy, and then you would go on and go into the detail of it. So again, an overview of, and some context for what you're talking about. Go into the details of each as best you can, and then make sure you end up by accomplishing the second part of that task, which is making sure they want to come. So, you're selling it to them in a way. You should get down here. It's amazing that you won't believe the sound they're making. So why don't you come and see it? I'll meet you. You can say where you're going to meet them. All right, very good. Jimmy said it's a street sound band. Excellent. I like that. It's a street band for sure. It's an unusual street band that's playing music with odd objects. And sometimes, this can sound amazing. So it's good. And Shamin said, making sound from white wine glasses using a stick. Right. And you may also want to mention that the glasses have different levels of water in them in order to create different sounds, right? That person will then be able to visualize what's happening. Most people are aware that when you hit glasses with different levels of water in it, they will make different sounds. So kind of using it like a xylophone, if you know what a xylophone is, great. You can make a comparison or something like that. All right, fantastic. I'm sure you'd like to listen to some responses here. So let's get a level 9 response here for the same one. Sorry, I'll play it with the transcript.
Hi Katya, do you hear this music in a park somewhere downtown? I don't know, basically. And these street performers are actually having a really good band. And the instruments are, of course, glasses filled to different volumes, and a percussion set made of garbage cans or, buckets, plastic ones and metal ones. And it actually, you wouldn't believe it, sounds very good. I hope you can hear something, anything. They've been going at it for hours. We actually passed through here 3 hours ago, and they were doing the same thing, and it is such a good soundtrack actually for the entire city, for a day in the city. It's great. Check them out. Probably there's a YouTube or something.
Okay, so hopefully that one's a little low, so hopefully you heard it well. But level 9, so not bad. Obviously, it's a difficult task, and to use language effectively here is challenging, but this person did a pretty good job. I'm going to skip the analysis. Seems most are are comfortable skipping that, so that's good. But let's listen to a level 12 for the same response, and maybe we can compare the two a little bit. All right.
Start speaking.
Hey Katya, so I'm standing outside the Capilano suspension bridge. I'm really excited to see it. But right outside, there's these two street performers who are really amazing. One of them is a bucket drummer, so he's taken all these kind of household implements and containers, and he's using them as drums. And he's doing a really great job. And in this musical arrangement, he's being accompanied by another guy who has wine glasses with different levels of water, because you know how the trick where a glass filled with a different level of water creates a different note. So he has all these glasses in front of him, and he's also playing beautiful music, and he's accompanying the bucket drummer. So together they're creating this amazing rhythm, and I think you should definitely come see it if you'd like to see it, because I think they're going to be playing for.
Okay, unfortunately, I don't have a transcript for that one, but if you were able to follow along, hopefully you understood much of what he was saying there. So again, a very good response, because he's using a lot of good language to describe. He explained very well how the glasses are making different noises as well. He also used good vocabulary like percussion as well. All right, so unfortunately, we're run out of time and we're not able to continue more depth of analysis, but I want to go quickly over the strategies and then some study materials as well. Okay, so start up by setting up the role play scenario. So you definitely want to be, you're calling someone. Usually in this task, you're calling someone, so you want to start where the person answers the phone. And then hello would be an appropriate start. Hello, make up someone's name, or if the name is provided, use that. Describe the unique aspects of the image. Focus on unique things that you can describe well. Okay, use the language that you have. Try to be as accurate or describe using common words, as we've been doing here. Okay, and remember to end by finishing the phone call. Okay. All right, and yes, he did talk about, if we notice back in the picture, I'm just going to show you, this is the level 9 transcript in case anybody wanted to take a picture of that. But notice that in the picture, there's a sign in the background, and that might be helpful. It's not the name of the band, it's just the name of a place that's close by, the Capilano Suspension Bridge here in Vancouver. It's not that important, but you certainly want to, understand the overall place, that they're in a park, that there are many big trees behind them. It's kind of noticeable, so I would probably mention that as well. If I was running out of things to talk about in terms of the musicians that are playing. Okay, I did want to go over the study materials. So let's quickly go over this. Anna, at the end, if you stick around a little bit, I'll go back to that screen if you want to take a snapshot of that. But let's get through the sample test, or sorry, the study materials, and let you know that the sample test and practice test are free. Sample test you can go do online anytime. The practice test is available when you sign up for an account. It will automatically appear in your account. So there's two, free practice tests, and I advise you to definitely look into those and get a sense of the questions, the format, the structure of everything. And I do encourage you to come to our webinars like this one. We have others. We have also a Writing Pro Target 9, if you're interested in that. I believe that's next week, but look into the dates on our website, okay, celpip.ca, and sign up as early as possible, especially for the Target 9s. They do seem to be quite popular, right? Okay, and these are new webinars though, so you shouldn't have seen these for months and months. We've only been doing these webinars for the last month. But again, we do the same webinars for at least 6 months before we'll come out with new ones. So you may not want to go see the same webinars again and again unless you're getting some benefit from it, right? But we have so many other materials for you to investigate, including not just what's on our website and the free practice tests that are available, but also we have paid products, and I highly recommend the CELPIP Accelerate program. It's divided into 2 different sections because it depends on whether you're doing the entire test or just the listening and speaking portion. Some people only need to do listening and speaking for citizenship, and others need to do the entire test. So we divide them up, but I recommend this CELPIP Accelerate program because you're able to study at your own pace. And there's just so much material in there. There's an entire practice test and so much more. And it's only, I think, $5 more than what a practice test would cost. So I just think it's great. Look into that. We also have practice and analysis if you really want to, analyze responses and get some practice. I think this program as well is really good. It's online and it's also designed around another full practice test. So we also have a lot of practice tests for you to look into and purchase. I think there are 7 practice tests in total now, and each one includes 2 practice tests. So there's a lot available up online. Unfortunately, you do have to purchase them, but you get a discount when you purchase, I think 4 or more, I'm not sure, but check out the website. Also, these are some other study materials. We have the study guide. The focus books are both available in print only. So for those who are interested in having a book in their hand and working that way, I like that myself. These focus books are quite popular and you want to look into those. And there's a couple others here, common CELPIP errors and vocabulary skills. All of those are available on the website. Again, we also have another test, the CALE, which is an academic English language test. I'll just let you know if you're interested later in going to university, or maybe you need, language proficiency proof for a professional organization like IRCC or something. The CALE might be a test for you and you want to look into that. And we have a website devoted to that test as well, CALE.ca, so you might want to look into those. We also have free webinars for our CALE test as well. And this is our contact information, so you can get in touch with us in a variety of ways. I recommend first going to the celpip.ca website and checking out the frequently asked questions, the FAQs, to see if your answer is there. Sometimes there's answers to questions that you never knew you had. And sometimes it brings up more questions. But that's good. So if you want an immediate answer, you can use the online chat option, which is available sometimes, Monday to Friday, usually in the bottom right corner of our celpip.ca website. If that pops up and you see an online chat option, that means someone's available to answer a question for you immediately, which is nice. But you can also send us an email or call us during office hours with the toll-free number here. I'll also mention the YouTube channel. We have a number of videos posted there, and we're going to continue updating those as well. All right, so definitely look into our YouTube channel. Eventually, we'll have these webinars up there as well, like Target 9 and Target 5. Speaking Pro and Writing Pro will be posted on YouTube eventually. We're just still developing it and perfecting it before we put it on YouTube. And that should happen within the next few months or so. Okay, but there are many videos up there that you might want to look into. One of them, I think there's Rate the Responses up there, gives you some sample analysis as well, which is great. So certainly look into YouTube. Okay, thank you so much.